Today, my topic is using InnerSource to improve internal reuse. And then the agenda is I will briefly explain what is my current research studies, and I will focus on my fourth study to explain the motivation, objective, and then the results. So in total, I have 4 studies, and there are 3 case study and 1 literature review. For study 1 and study 2, they are having the same purpose, that we are going to investigate the software reuse practice in real context, and in particular about the software reuse costs, benefits, challenges, and improvements in the contemporary software engineering practices. Here, software reuse is it's an old topic from 1960s, but it's still ongoing because all the technologies collaboration is getting improved all the time. And then, for example, you can see that the collaboration in the organization are changing from siloed individual teams to collaborate among teams. And the technology also improved, that people are using continuous delivery, continuous integration, and also there's microservices architecture. So the study 1 and study 2 is both case studies, but in a different context. One is about a medium-sized company. The other one is a large multinational company. And then we have study 3 and study 4. Study 4 is a systematic literature review that we investigate the observed software reuse costs and benefits in a real case, and also we want to know how they are measured and what is the strength of the evidence behind the claims. Using that, after we propose certain solutions, we can use those metrics to evaluate whether the solutions are good for are solving the problems or not. And then study 4 is a follow-up study for the study 1. The study 1 is a medium-sized company that we investigated the software reuse cost benefits, challenges, and improvement areas. So from there, we had a follow-up study that we are going to using InnerSource for improving the development, maintenance, and ownership of the reuse assets. So the status of the studies. Study 1 is accepted in the Informatica Software Engineering Journal, and study 2 and 4 is on the manuscript state. Study 3 is still on the data analysis phase. We plan all of them as a journal paper. And then I will focus on the study 4 today. In study 1, that we identified the following main challenges. It's about the maintenance, ownership of reusable assets, discoverability of the reusable assets, and reuse measurements. All those point towards InnerSource. The InnerSource can actually improve those challenges. For example, maintenance ownership, that the InnerSource has a pattern called 30 days warranty, that if you contribute to a branch, and then if there's problems happen in your contribution, you have to be responsible for 30 days to react on the problems and help the main team to solve the problems. And also during that time, you need to help the main team to understand what your contribution is, so that you can pass the responsibility entirely to the core team. And then Now, from the study 1, that we know InnerSource could potentially help the software reuse practice in this case company, but where to start? Because there are so many patterns that we can do in the that we can adopt from the InnerSource commune. However, which one is more suitable for the company and which one is more urgent for the company, we don't know. So where to start? That's why we are doing the follow-up study, the study 4. To solve that, we have 2 objectives. One is we want to investigate the current and desired status of InnerSource maturity for the development, maintenance, and ownership of the reusable assets. For that, we developed and executed a questionnaire. After the questionnaire, we have top listed certain improvements that we can, that's both the practitioners want to improve and also somewhere that we can help. After that, we have those a pool of improvement areas. However, we still need to know which one to improve the first. So we need to prioritize the InnerSource improvement areas and provide the solutions for the prioritized improvement areas. For that, we conducted a workshop. The questionnaire, there's already a certain maturity model in the InnerSource commune. However, the current maturity model is not only for the reuse purpose, it's for the InnerSource. So we customized it to meet the company's need, all the challenges that they're facing. Also, we limited the maturity model in the software reuse only. And then in the results, we generated 6 categories covering 19 areas. And then this is the questionnaire. That first we will ask the demographic information from the participants about their role, teams, experiences, and what reuse practice that they are involved. And second is about the reuse related question that we have the questions covering the reusable assets, reuse process, reuse collaboration, reuse measurement, rewards for reuse, and then the reuse culture in the organization. And then each question, they have 2 forms that are asking the current status and the desired status, that where the participants want the company to reach at the end. And this is an example of one question that you have first the current and second desired. And if you have certain comments on the status or the question, you can comment here. And then you have 4 status ranging from 1 to 4. 1 means it is not mandatory, not mature. And then 4 means it's more organized, more systematic, and then people taking more care of this area.
Just a short question. This status corresponds to maturity levels.
Yes.
Okay.
Maturity levels. Sorry, there is an animation problem here. But so this is the result that we get. This is for the current status for all 19 areas. And then you can see there's a color representing different status. And then you can look at the rectangle one. There's 7 areas that are relatively at lower level status in the current one, which means those status, they are not that mature. And people maybe doing it, so there's no regulation for the developers or for the participants to follow. There's no guidelines. It's not that mature. And then if you look at the triangle one, there's this is the areas that you can see has the most different colors, which means there are a lot of disagreement on this area, that different participants holding different opinions on it. And then if you look at the last four, you can see that the areas are at relatively higher level status, which means that they are more satisfied with it, and then it's in the more mature level. And then once we have the current status result, we want to know the desired status result. So overall, you can say that people want all the areas to become more mature instead of the current. And then if you look at the top five, those areas are the areas that the participants want to have the highest status. So it should be more mature, and then the guidelines should be more clear, for example. Once we have the current and desired status, then we want to know whether the participants actually are satisfied with the current, or they want more improvements for that area. For example, you can see there's two different parts. One is about satisfied with the current status, which means that they selected the same options in both the current and desired status. And then the wanted improvements that means the participants selected probably lower level on the current one, and then they want a higher level in the desired one. And then therefore you can see that that the top 7 areas, you can see most of them that they want improvements, especially for the support for contributing, maintaining the reusable code assets. But but we also want to know whether those same numbers are having the difference behind it, because probably the role of the developers will act differently. For example, the producer and consumers, we can see that, for example, the managers view on reuse collaboration, that consumers think they are satisfied with the current status. However, the producer, the one who produced the reusable assets, they want more improvements. They want more support from the manager's view on the reuse collaboration. And then for that, we also identified two. One is the manager's view, and the other one is the ownership and maintenance of the reusable assets. Then here we have the pool of the wanted improvement areas. So those are the top list one, and from the top list one, we extracted 6 of them, because during the time, the companies already have adopted certain approaches to improve certain areas, and also there's areas could potentially cover the other areas. For example, the discoverability and the documentation. When we discuss about the discoverability, the practitioners, they will bring up the documentation. And then therefore we conducted a workshop. We invited 5 participants from the company, which 4 are developers and 1 is project manager. The workshop took place at BTH, because if they are located in their own company, probably they are facing more pressure, or there's less innovation, or that's why we put them into a new environment, then they can think openly. And then for that, we discussed the questionnaire results for the selected improvement areas with the participants, so that they can get an overview of the results, and then they can reflect on it to also to start the discussion among them. And then after the discussion that they have, they need to prioritize the improvement areas and giving some suggestions from the possible solutions. In the workshop, all the participants, they will have one paper card explaining two dimensions. One is about the cost, the other one is about the importance. So when we discuss about one improvement areas, for example, discoverability, we will ask the participants their view on whether these areas are important to the company in their view, and also whether it is costly to improve this area in their view for the company. And then from that, we gathered all the results, and the presentation is a bit so you have a lot of noisy, but in the presentation we can see that there's no improvement areas that has a slight important and has a very high cost. And then if we focus on the right downside corner, you can see that the discoverability is of the most importance and has the lowest cost. And then later on is about the communication channel for the reusable assets, and then goes to the maintenance and ownership of the reusable assets. From the workshop results, that we also discovered some solutions for the improvement the areas. The first prioritized one, discoverability, that we can use solutions, for example, improve the documentation for the reusable packages. In the documentation, you need to have certain elements. For example, what is the reusable assets for, so that the one who is using understand what they can use. And also they need to improve the structure of the repository, because if you cannot find the reusable assets in the company, then you have no clue whether it is exists in company or not. Then unavoidable, probably you will do it from scratch again, and then you have to duplicate the work in the organization. And then the second one is about the communication channels. That the funny thing happened during the workshop is that the consumers think the communication is they are satisfied with the communication. However, the producer, they think the communication channel needs to improve. And then from the producer's view, they think they need to establish a cross-team communication channels, that the communication should not limit it in inside the team, but also expand to other teams, so to reduce the silo situation. And then second is they need to specify and share the details of the owner's guidance of the reusable assets, so that you know who you should approach if you face certain problems, or if you want to do contribution, who you should approach as for that guidelines, that certain things. And then they should log the important information in certain files, and then you need to have a search function that you can filter out with questions. So it's more like a customer services that you have a list of the problems, the common problems, and then you can ask for it or you can search for it without approaching the people, and then therefore you save a lot of effort or save a lot of time. And then third one is about maintenance ownership, that you need to have a clear guideline about who to review, who you can share, what to update. And then you have to clarify the roles and responsibility, especially when InnerSource really scales up. Now it's okay that we have a producer team who is focused on producing the risk assets, but when the InnerSource scales up, that everyone can contribute and or reuse, then you have like scattered responsibility. However, you need to specify it. Once there's problem, you need to have the possibility. You need to have the possibility to point out to one responsible, so that it's easier to solve the problems. And then, therefore, also the guidance owners of the risk assets. For the documentation, yet yes, you can approach someone who is responsible, but however, those information that's stored, it also needs to be maintained, and then therefore we also need that. We also need to identify a person responsible for that. And then any questions and suggestions?